Hello, hello. This is Justin Colletti of SonicScoop. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of the SonicScoop podcast. If you're here for the live stream premiere, let me know if you can see me and hear me in the chat box there. Great to have you with me. And today we're going to be going over headphones, the best headphones for mixing and mastering. Years ago, producers and engineers and audio pros would have told you, you can't mix in headphones. Don't mix in headphones. You need to mix in speakers. And today, honestly, I would give you almost the opposite advice. It's great to have awesome speakers in an awesome sounding room. And I have great speakers in a really well-treated room here that I can trust. But even me, I use headphones to check every single master I do as a mastering engineer. And on the road, I have mastered tracks with these headphones, and my clients have not known the difference between the ones I did in the studio and the ones on these. And I can do that because two reasons. One, they're a suitable pair of headphones for mixing and mastering, and I'll give you my criteria for what those are. And two, I know them really well. I've listened to every master I've done through them. But these headphones, which I used to recommend to people, they're not really being made anymore. I think one of the reasons is you might see this coating just flakes off of these, and every time I use them, there's a little big black flecks all over me. And although I really love these, I do want to get a replacement for them. And I know that today there are even better options out there. I'm so sorry to say these were the blue MixFi headphones. You can still find these in MixFis and the Lolas. I still think that for headphones around $300 and under, they have some of the best low end that you're going to find in headphones. And this is one of the criteria that made it so that for a long time, audio professionals would not recommend that you mix on headphones. One of the reasons would be roller coaster upper mids and highs, that it's hard to get headphones that are reasonably flat in the mid-range and high frequencies. There are some headphones that solve this. In fact, I have some of them right here. Some of the most popular headphones for solving this problem were these, the Sennheiser HD600s and HD650s, really good mid-range and high-frequency detail and flatness, really usable, accurate headphones. But one of the problems these headphones always had is that they didn't necessarily extend as low as you might like to make really good decisions about the bottom end. Still really useful headphones in their price range. But today, I think there's some even better options. One of them actually made by the same brand that makes these Sennheisers that we'll talk about in just a minute. So still great headphones, but I wanted to see, is there stuff that's better? And there are things I'd recommend even more, and we'll get to those in just a minute. Today, we're going to be looking at the best headphones for mixing and mastering. So that means we're not going to be looking at $50 headphones and $100 headphones. Pretty much everything here is going to start at about $300 and go up from there. The most expensive headphones I'll mention are almost $5,000, but those are not going to be one of the top picks because they are almost $5,000, although I am going to give them a shout out. They're fantastic. If anyone thinks they know what they are, let me know in the chat box before I even say them. But there are some incredible headphones between $300 and $1,500, and we'll look at the pros and cons of each, where each excel, and which ones might be best suited for you. Because here's the thing, headphones are an extremely personal choice. And the headphones that work the best for me might not be the headphones that work the best for you. People are asking for my opinions on a whole bunch in here. People are asking, do you like the MM-500s more, the HD650s more? Do you like the MM-500s more, the Focal Clears? I'm going to answer all these questions. We're going to go through all the models that people are asking about in the chat box right now, because I have literally a dozen models of headphones here right now that I've just tried out back to back, and I have a dozen more that I've taken extensive notes on. And we're not going to make this daunting. We're going to make this really easy to handle. So what are my three criteria before we get into my list for the best headphones? I just want to give you my criteria really quick. One is that we have reasonably flat mid-range and high frequencies that aren't going to lead us wildly astray. Number two, that we have usable low frequency that extends deep enough and is resonance free enough that we can make critical listening decisions about our low end better than we might be able to in our rooms. And then the third criteria is transient response. And this is something that you will start to understand the more that you deal with really high-end speakers and really high-end headphones. If you've had the luxury like me to work in a super high-end mastering studio with super high-end mastering monitors, you will discover that transient accuracy is totally a thing, and you didn't know it was a thing because you never heard it before. And I've got to say, some of the best headphones on this list do this really well, that they're relatively resonance free and that we get incredible transient detail. And not all of the headphones on the list are going to excel in this category. And that's one of the places where the highest end headphones are going to be separated from the lower end headphones. Other criteria are stuff like how comfortable are they? How cool do they look? Are they heavy? Are they light? And I'll give you my notes on all that stuff. But bear in mind, my personal preferences aren't necessarily going to be your personal preferences. This is a deeply personal thing, but I'm going to give you listening notes that I think will be useful for you, even if you have different tastes in sound than I do. All right, with all of that preamble out of the way, let's start getting into the actual headphones. And I'm going to give you my top choice. I have an article coming out. If you want an article version of this, you can check in the description down below. I'll give you my complete notes. And there are affiliate links in this video. There is no sponsor on this podcast episode. You can just click the affiliate links that are down there in the video version of this, or click over to the article version of this. That'll be in the show notes. And you can click the affiliate links there if you want to buy any of those. That kind of thing makes me able to do this without having any brand sponsoring this video that's really going to color my opinions. All right, so I did come up with winners in a bunch of categories. And my first one, winner for best overall, is... I love these headphones. They come in this awesome box. These are the Audeze MM-500 headphones. Now, there are some headphones that are just about as good as these, and I will give you my take on them. There are some that are neck and neck with them, but these are the ones that would win for my personal taste, and I'll tell you why. And I'll also, for each of these headphones, give what little critique I can. But pretty much every headphone we're going to talk about right now, if you bought them, you'd be like, these are awesome. They're better than what I'm using. They're great. But the Audeze, or I should say Odyssey, is actually how you pronounce it. I know it looks like it'd be Audeze or Odyssey, but it's pronounced Odyssey. These headphones were the ones that were designed in conjunction with Manny Marroquin, amazing mixing engineer. That's where the MM on these comes from. MM-500. These headphones are about $1,700. Now, I'll get my one negative thing out of the way about these headphones. They're not my favorite looking headphones of the bunch. They are fantastic headphones, amazing sounding, some of the best low frequency response of any headphones, period. The only critique I'll give them is that they're a little bit bigger and bulkier and heavier than the average of the headphones on this list. There are actually even bigger and heavier versions from Audeze. The very first headphones I tried from Audeze were the LCD4s. And I just want to tell you about my experience listening to these headphones for the first time. This was right before the world shut down at an AES convention. I went there and there's this brand called Audeze there. I'd never really heard of them before. They were some hi-fi brand apparently. And I was like, I'll check these, audiophile guys out. I don't really like audiophile brands. I'm a pro audio guy, but I'll give them a try. I see what I'm about. I really went in wanting to hate their headphones because they're showing off $4,000 or $5,000 headphones. I'd never heard of $4,000 or $5,000 headphones before. Seemed like snake oil to me. Seemed like it would be ridiculous. I tried on their LCD4 models, which were then their top flagship headphones. And I was like, no, these aren't headphones. No headphones have any business sounding this good. This is the closest I have ever felt or heard to being inside of a super high-end mastering studio without being inside of a super high-end mastering studio. They're incredible. If you have $4,000 to spend on headphones, you could do worse than to get a pair of Audeze LCD4s. I still, to this day, have not heard anything like them. They have a new flagship model called the Audeze LCD5. Those are about $4,500. Fantastic headphones as well. They're slightly smaller than the original LCD4s, but the LCD4s have low end that is it's out of this world. It's like being in the room with speakers. You can not only hear, but feel the low end, and it's completely usable. And the detail in the mid-range and the high frequencies and the transient detail, the transient response, just get out. Honestly, you could go and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a mastering system to listen on, a monitoring system, or you could just buy a $4,000 pair of Audeze headphones, and I think you would get the same results. And I'm not the only person to think that. Glenn Schick, who now I think he uses the LCD5s to master. He masters all of his recordings now on the LCD headphones from Audeze, and he's doing top-level, multi-platinum selling work, just mastering on headphones. Totally achievable, totally possible. These are substantially less expensive. Let me pull up my price sheet here. Here's an article I'll get it up on screen here so you guys have some visual aid if you're on the video version of this podcast. Let me get my visual share up. These are the MM-500. It's a picture of them. $1,700 is basically where you're going to find the street price. You won't find them in Sweetwater, so if you're going to check out the affiliate links down below, I think B&H has them. I think maybe Thomann, the guys in Europe, have them. So we have a few different links. We have Amazon links down there too. So check those out. Sweetwater doesn't carry these, which I know is a place that a lot of our readers shop from, but B&H has them. And I've got to say, man, winner best overall for me. My only thing is if I want to look cool on camera, to be honest, they're not the first headphones I would choose. And that's really my only negative about them. That and maybe the weight, but absolutely fantastic. All right. My next ones here are going to be another one that comes in a beautiful box that I think gets the style portion of things even more right than the Audezes and are really almost neck and neck with these MM-500s. And they are the Focal Clear Pros. These are the Clear MG Professional model. And these headphones, I have to admit, are a little bit more comfortable. I think they look a little bit better. They feel a little bit better. And the sound is really in the same ballpark. So here's me trying on these headphones. I think they're a better look, slightly lighter weight, slightly better feel. They have the same kind of amazing low frequency extension and transient accuracy, transient response I'm looking for in a set of headphones where I can make mastering level decisions. The only thing that keeps these headphones from being the top of the list for me is I feel like the upper mid-range and the high frequencies on the Audezes are a little bit more neutral and a little bit better balanced. They just sound closer to really good mastering grade speakers to me than these Focals. Don't get me wrong, the Focals sound gorgeous. And if you started mixing or mastering on these, you'd have great results. It is worth knowing about almost all headphones is they're going to be somewhat skewed in usually the upper mid-range and the high frequencies. If you look at them on a frequency chart, they'll usually look like a roller coaster, but they usually don't sound as bad as they look on a chart. These in particular have a little bit of softness around 3K where they're reduced and then a little bit of a lift up. I think it's around 10K. So it makes them really pleasant to listen to. If I was just listening to music for enjoyment, these would be on par with the Audezes 100%. I just think that they almost sound a little bit arguably too smooth and too pleasant, where they might not be as revealing of harshness around 3K or lack of brilliance around 10K. So to me, they might have a tiny bit of a longer learning curve. But on the flip side, these sound a little bit smoother and thicker because of this than the Audezes do. And I think these would be some of the least fatiguing headphones you'll ever use. If you're going to be listening to headphones for hours upon hours on end, just the smoothness and the openness and the invitingness of these, they're just gorgeous build, design, sound, everything. Pricing on these guys, let me bring my article back up that should be out shortly after this live stream finishes. Man, in this article, there's like 8,000 words in here. I write almost 1,000 words about every one of these sets of headphones. But here, the clears, they are about $1,200. The prior version of these were about $1,500. So now that I'm able to find these Pro MGs, which are supposed to be better than the prior version, for $1,200, great buy. They're priced less than the Audezes and are on the same level of quality. So definitely a pair to check out. Now, we are going to get into less and less expensive headphones as we go along, but I want to stay with some of the things that kind of feel more luxurious for right now. And then we'll get into some more of my favorites in slightly lower price ranges. But one more brand that I would put in the kind of luxury end of things, but way more affordable than both the Focals and the Audezes, are going to be Beyerdynamic. I am a lover of Beyerdynamic microphones, and I know there's a lot of die-hard fans of the Beyerdynamic headphones. The ones I have in my hand right now are the DT 700s, but the more relevant ones compared to the ones we were just looking at would be the 1770s and the 1990s. And the prices on those, I believe, are about $530 each. Let me bring up my screen for those of you on the video version of this. Here's a picture of the DT 1990 for you, the open back version. And I've got to say, these once again really win for me in style and comfort. I think even these models that I have in my hand right now, these are about $269, $270, the DT 700s and the DT 900s, and they're just a slightly less fancy version of the 1990s and the 1770s. These are just, again, good looking, good sounding, good feeling headphone. Just comfort, fit, and style. These guys have got it nailed. They feel like they're almost the quality level of some of those super high-end brands we just looked at, but for a way lower price. And I think this is one of the standouts. If you want a product that like feels like a luxury product, is fun and inviting and smooth to listen to, it does some of the kinds of stuff that the Focal Clear gives you at a substantially lower price point. So another great brand to check out. My criticism of these are the same as my criticism of the Focal Clears, which is that they almost sound a little bit too nice, and there's almost a little bit too much tailoring of the upper mids and highs to make them feel a little bit smoother and more inviting. I had some listening notes here. I believe these have a dip in a slightly different place. There's a little dip, I think it was around 4 or 5K where they were a little softer, and then a little lift up around 8 or 9K. So again, you have to be concerned about, are you pushing things bright enough in that 8K to 9K area when you're listening on these headphones? Are you pushing too much 10K to make up for that boost you're hearing in 8 or 9K? Again, you'd either have to really learn these headphones or perhaps use some software correction on these headphones like Sonar works if you were having trouble learning them. Out of all of these that we've looked at, the high-end luxury models, for my tastes, the Audezes are the ones that would translate the best for what I know my biases are right out of the box. But none of these headphones are perfectly razor flat. No headphones are, and you've got to find the ones that suit your biases the most. One quick note I want to give you here, super important, one of the most important concepts in monitoring, is that your mixes will tend to sound like the inverse of your speakers or headphones. So if you have really dark headphones, you're going to tend to put out really bright sounding mixes, right? If you have headphones that are really soft in 3K, it's going to tend to encourage you to push 3K more. If you have headphones that are screaming at you with lots of 8K, it's going to encourage you to push 8K less. If you have really bright, thin sounding headphones, you might end up with really big, boomy, bottom heavy mixes. So the closer to flat you can get, usually the better. But because everything strays from flat, it's probably your best bet to pick something that leads you in a direction you ought to be going. So for example, if you tend to mix too fat and too dark and you know you should be pushing things brighter, maybe fatter, darker sounding headphones are a good thing for you to use. If you tend to mix, too thin and too bright and too clear and too sparkly on top, maybe it's good for you to use some really sparkly sounding headphones or speakers that already have some of that in there, so you're encouraged to bring them into balance a little bit more. So that's something else to think about. Now, while we're on that topic of making your mixes sound like the inverse of your speakers, I think some of the most useful speakers or headphones out there are often going to be the ones that bring the mid-range into the most focus and that give you the most kind of neutral and forward mid-range and allow you to make good critical listening decisions about the mid-range without too much skewing. And the next headphones here are cheaper than many of the ones we've been looking at. They're in a similar price range to the more expensive Beyerdynamics. They're about $550, and they are the new, still relatively new, Neumann NDH 30 headphones. And they win for me as being some of the most useful and some of the best mid-range. These headphones are not going to impress you right out of the box in the same way that the Audezes are going to, or that the Focal Clears are going to. They're probably not going to win in a quick sip test in that they're not as bright and clear and sparkly on top and not quite as big and extended on bottom. But what they do have is just really impeccable neutrality. The headphones that came out before these, the NDH 20s, were the closed back version of these headphones, and they were some of the best closed back headphones out there that I've heard. They're totally top 10, top 5, top 3 easy closed back headphones ever made, in my opinion, especially for the price that they're at. But these open back versions, they don't sound like the closed back ones. They sound flatter, more neutral, and just more potentially useful. They have the same kind of extended low frequency response that finally some modern headphones are using that are going to help us make critical listening decisions where our rooms might be leading us astray. But they're not so jacked up in the lows as to make your mix sound good before you make your mix sound good. These are headphones that are going to make you work a little bit. If you want things to really get some boom and sparkle, you're going to have to put it there because the headphones aren't putting it there. So they are possibly these two, the Audezes and the Neumanns, out of all the new headphones I tried, open back for mixing, probably my top two picks. The Audeze MM-500s and the Neumann NDH 30s for my personal set of tastes, biases, and preferences. But again, your tastes, biases, and preferences may be different. So I really encourage you not to just take my word for this stuff, but try out some headphones. And keep in mind that idea of your mix sounding a little bit like the inverse of your headphones to help guide you in some of these decisions. There's one other comment I should make around the Audezes. If you want a slightly different voicing in these headphones, there's a couple of options here. They actually have a much less expensive model out now called the MM-100. They are only about $400. I was not able to myself try the MM-100s in my own studio, but I did try them at the last NAMM show back to back with all of the high-end Audezes. And it's my opinion that, listening to the $4,500 LCD 5s from Audeze and then listening to these $1,700 MM-500s that they're closely related to, yes, the LCD 5 sounded slightly better. And was it enough to make me want to shell out an additional $3,000? For me personally, it's so hard to say. For most people, absolutely not. You're not going to miss that additional 5 to 7% improvement, maybe 8% improvement for $3,000 more dollars. But it's a difference that I can hear, and I'm so conflicted about it. But I would say to 98% of people who I'd recommend high-end headphones to, I'd just be like, get the MM-500s for $1,700. They're remarkable. And even listening to these MM-500s now in my own studio, I'm like, I can't understand how any headphones could be better than these. These are fantastic. And I have personally heard headphones that are slightly better than these, the LCD 5s and the LCD 4s. But I'm like, I can't even imagine after listening to these and not having them to compare with, like, how headphones could sound better than these. How is that possible? There is a model below them now, the MM-100. I tried a prototype at NAMM, and I thought they were very good, that they didn't have the same transient response that these guys had. And they were maybe a little softer around 4K, but they're like $400. They were a third as much. So those, if Audeze gets their marketing right, could become some of the best-selling headphones out there, the MM-100. So check those out as well as a possibility around $400. One other comment I should make is that the Audezes also have a pair of headphones called the LCD-X. And those are a little fatter, thicker, smoother sounding. Like they're a little darker on top. They don't have quite as much 3K, something like that, upper mid-range. There's a little bit less of it. And then it doesn't have quite as much low frequency extension, I found, as the MM-500s. But the LCD-Xs, if you want something that's just a little thicker, a little bit more kind of meaty in the body, that's going to encourage you to go even brighter, then the LCD-Xs could be a good way to go. And there's a lot of mixing engineers who are really liking those. And I would say that these, from my sense memory of it, these Focal Clears were like somewhere between the Audeze MM-500s and the slightly darker LCD-X. All right, there I'm possibly going a little bit too much into the weeds with a little bit TMI. But back to these Neumanns. If you want headphones that are not like luxury feeling sounding headphones and are just like, these headphones are going to help you get better mixes, fantastic headphones. these would be another top choice for me, especially if I wanted to spend a third as much as the MM500s that we mentioned. And I just don't understand how these Sennheisers that have been so popular for so long, these 600s and the 650s, are going to continue to exist with these Neumanns out there where they have that same kind of flatness in the mid frequencies to me, but they also have the additional low end extension and really usable low frequency information, which is what so many of us in project studios really want and need. So fortunately, Neumann and Sennheiser are owned by the same company. They're both owned by Sennheiser. So if these take market share away from Sennheiser, they're giving the market share back to Sennheiser. So we won't cry any tears for Sennheiser. Neumann's and Sennheiser are the same company. All right. Let's go a little bit further on to my next pick here. I'll bring back up my screen share. All right. This one is a really interesting one. Runner up in this category of being the most useful, a different vibe completely. These are the Sony MDR-MV1s. Let me pull them up so you can see them on me. Now, these headphones, one of the best things about them is also one of the worst things about them. When I first picked these headphones up, I was like, these are the lightest headphones I've ever felt. Like they feel like super cheap, like they're Walkman weight headphones. But then I was like, oh, they're super light. And I put them on, like you forget these headphones are on. This is one of the coolest things about them. They are the lightest headphones easily in this whole bunch. And I think that's a great selling point. Like if you're going to be doing audio work for 8 hours a day or more, and you're going to have headphones on your head, these, you just won't even feel them. You'll forget that they're there. They are the lightest and some of the most comfortable, even though they're not crazy expensive, for $400. Now, these, I put them again in the most useful category because I think they are headphones that give you good low-end extension, good upper mids and high frequencies, but they are way more hyped up than the Neumanns. They're a different feel. And I've got to tell you, as much as I love the Neumanns, not everyone is going to love working on them because they are not hyped up. They are the opposite of being hyped up headphones. These Sonys bring a little bit of excitement and hype back into the equation while still being really useful, critical listening headphones. And they can theoretically go even more flat than they are out of the box because there are a few studios that are certified by Sony to do a head relief transfer function, HRTF measurement of your head and your shoulders and your ears and all of that, so that they can mimic the results you'd get in some of these high-end studios. So you can get created for you a customized head relief transfer function, is my understanding. So what the guy from Sony was telling me on the phone there, that this is something they designed for people who are going to be doing high-end mixing and like Atmos systems, and they want to be able to do kind of binaural monitoring. So there's that potential additional benefit here. These headphones sound a little bit like the old Sony MDR-7506s, except not as hyped up. They have a bit of a signature Sony sound, although not excessively so. The Sony MDR-7506s, in case you're not familiar with them, they're one of the best-selling headphones in the history of pro headphones. I believe that Andrew Sheps actually mixes on the Sony MDR-7506s. I think these days they're only like $80. And their design has remained unchanged since like, I don't know, 1995, maybe even earlier. My problem with the Sony MDR-7506 is I don't think they're great for mixing on. They're a little too hyped up. They're a little bit too brash, too bold, too bombastic, too exciting sounding. And like I said, your mixes can sound like the inverses of your headphones or monitors. And if they're already super bright and hyped up sounding, your mixes could end up sounding less bright and hyped up. That said, Andrew Sheps doing amazing multi-platinum selling, Grammy-winning work using Sony MDR-7506 headphones. With that said, I think that these Sony MDR-MV1s capture a little bit of that fun excitement of working in Sony headphones and some of that extra sense of detail that you feel like you get out of them without it being excessive, while being flat enough to be useful and while having enough low end to be useful. For my personal taste, I found the low end on them a tiny bit excessive, and I would only worry that they would encourage me to put in slightly less low end than I would like on records, but I could be wrong. I have not mastered or mixed a record on them. I've only listened to them extensively, but they easily perform as well as the others. If you want headphones that have good transient response, good for commercial level critical listening, but you want a little bit more excitement and hype out of them, and you're a fan of the Sony signature sound, these could be an awesome way to go. So I'm going to put these as a runner-up in my most useful category. All right, the next ones that we're going to get to are some of the best small profile headphones. And I've got to tell you, if you're going to be on camera, a lot of these headphones that we've looked at, some of the best headphones around, are kind of big and clunky and ugly looking sometimes. And if you're doing like podcasts, or you're mixing on screen or recording on screen, or you're an artist, you're doing recording sessions or, interview spots, and you want to have headphones that are a little bit just smaller and kind of more flattering, the Sonys are the lightest, but even smaller in profile are these Austrian Audio High X series. And I think these, I have both the High X 60s here, there's the closed backs, and the High X 65s here. I just think that when I put these headphones on, just the profile is just a little easier for me to deal with. I think the black look and the red trim of these High X 60s is even better for me. I think I also have a pair of the High X 55s here, although I have so many headphones around me, it's going to be impossible for me to find those right now. But these are easily the smallest headphones. For those of you who are on the video version, I'll kind of hold them up next to the Audezes. They just have a slimmer, more compact vibe, and they're still as good as headphones kind of get in this price range. These are about $430, and they also have some models that are less expensive than these. I've got to say the High X 60s are some of the better closed back headphones that are out there. There are a few that I prefer a little bit more, but they're more expensive. The Atom closed back headphones, which are total sleeper headphones, almost nobody knows about them, and the Neumann closed back ones, I personally like a hair better, but these are like right up there with some of the best ones, and they are $100 to $200 less, I think, than some of those headphones. So the closed back ones, really nice, not perfectly flat, but no closed back headphones are going to be. The open back ones are really interesting. I have not heard any headphones that are voiced like these High 65s. They really have their own unique frequency response that you're either going to hear them and you're going to be like, these are cool, these are my headphones, I like this vibe, finally. Or you're going to be like, these sound different than other headphones that I've liked. What's with that? And from my experience, I've never heard, it's the mid-range, something's different. There's this meaty thwack in the mid-range. It's like there's a little bit more 300 hertz and 700 hertz in these headphones than I think is the norm for open back headphones. And then there is maybe a little bit of a dip, I think, between 1K and 2K. Again, all headphones are away from flat in some way, but these were away from flat in a different place than I'm used to hearing. And they're not voiced the same way as the closed backs. I just thought it was interesting, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'd have to listen to them more, but if you're a person who wants to hear kind of more earthiness in your headphones, maybe you want headphones that are going to encourage you to clean up some of the center mids and low mids a little bit more, instead of scooping out that area for you in advance, these headphones might do that. So if you're finding that so many headphones you try out, they sound so scooped that you're not doing enough scooping in your mixes, these could potentially lead you in that direction. I think they're good headphones, but again, a different flavor. Really unique voicing. Austrian Audio, I think, is trying to find its own sonic niche that's different than other brands. And you've really got to try them, compare them to others, like all of these, to figure out which ones are going to suit you best. Okay, the next headphones that I have for you guys are the weirdest headphones that I have for you guys. Now, again, I do have about a dozen headphones scattered around me, so it's going to take me a second to find them for you. I had them all neat when we first started this, and as we go along, I'm getting increasingly less neat as I take out pair after pair of headphones. Give me 1 second and I'll grab them. All right. I don't want a ton of dead air on the live stream, so you're just going to have to believe me that I was just listening to these headphones and I have them around. I will bring up the picture of them right now. And anyone have a guess about what I think are the weirdest headphones, the most different from anything else? They are going to be the Slate VSX headphones. Let me pull them up here. These are only $300. And I say they're weird because they're a totally different concept than any of the other headphones that we've looked at. They were literally on my desk a second ago. But man, these headphones deserve their own video. I almost hesitate to put them in the same category as other headphones because they're not just headphones. They are headphones plus a whole software listening environment that makes these things tick. By themselves, if you were to just take these headphones and plug them in without using the Slate hardware, they're not bad. They go surprisingly deep for headphones, which again is useful and one of the things that I've been looking for in headphones. Because again, one of the biggest reasons that I would recommend headphones for people is that it's hard to get really good low frequency monitoring in your room environment. You really have to put money into acoustic treatment. Sometimes $1,000, $2,000 if you're having the stuff pre-built. That will start to get you a decent room. So low frequencies are one of the places that headphones can help us the most. But these do something interesting. Slate VSX headphones basically imitate rooms and other pairs of headphones. So by themselves, you plug them in. They're good enough headphones with good low frequency extension. They're a little bit on the dark side if you were to just use them by themselves. But you're not supposed to just use them by themselves. You're supposed to open up a plugin in your DAW or a system-wide app on your computer. And this allows you to model a wide variety of rooms. There's basically a plugin that comes along with them. And you can emulate the sound of a few different sets of headphones. They also have a linear kind of flat response for these Slate headphones where they start to get close to the quality of some of the headphones that we've been looking at here. Like once you put on their linear setting, they sound like better than $300 headphones. But what's crazy about them is they emulate things like cars and specific mixing studios and mastering studios. Just opening up some of the default presets, like Steven Slate's own personal mixing room, and then pulling up the near field monitor, which is an Auratone, it's just like, my reaction was, this is ridiculous. No, there's no way. Like it sounded like there was an Auratone in front of me. It was absolutely remarkable. It does not sound like you're listening to headphones when you're listening to that Auratone emulation. It literally does sound like an Auratone speaker that's maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet away from you. It sounds nothing like listening on headphones. It's a similar effect with some of the other near field, mid field, and far field monitors that you can listen on. And you can also take the mix out to a car and you get to do the car check from your headphones. Right now, we're looking at the Platinum Edition on here, which is $500. And this Platinum Edition comes with a whole bunch of additional virtual rooms and virtual cars that you can listen in. The base model, which I believe is more like $300, just comes with a couple of different listening environments and headphone models. Is this just a gimmick, though? You know, it's impossible to say unless you try working on these for yourself. And I can tell you that there do appear to be some people out there on social media sites, on places like Reddit, and people giving their opinions on YouTube who say, man, getting these headphones, the Slate VSXs, changed the way I work and really helped improve my mixes. And I've got to tell you, I would absolutely say that the Slate VSX headphones are probably going to give you better results than any other headphones below $300. Listening to the linear setting on these headphones, there's no question, just taking these headphones, linear setting, they are going to outperform any headphones you might have been using for $50 or $100 or $150. They are also, for $300, absolutely going to outperform whatever speakers you have in an untreated room. If you haven't put $1,000 or $2,000 worth of acoustic treatment into your room, these $300 headphones will probably help you get better results than a pair of much more expensive monitors in an untreated room. Now, the only catch here is that's also true of a whole bunch of other headphones that cost $300. A whole bunch of other headphones that also cost $300 could also get you better results than pretty much any headphones below that price point, and can possibly get you better results than even really nice speakers in a completely untreated room. So that aspect of it is not unique to Slate VSX. But what is unique to Slate VSX is, in addition to having this really good linear preset you can use, you have these other virtual listening environments you can go into. How useful is that? I don't know, because I have not mixed or mastered full records through one of their preset rooms. It's almost a little daunting to be like, which room do I use? I need to get to know all of these rooms now and pick my favorite. Like, I almost wish I didn't have all these choices, and you just gave me a really good $300 pair of headphones. So that's kind of my preference as someone who has been in a ton of different rooms and heard a ton of different monitors. I really want to get to know inside and out very deeply one or maybe two or three sets of headphones or speakers that I'm going to use, and that's all that I'm ever going to use. And I've heard all of my references through that, all of my work through that, and I get to know those things deeply. For me, mastering today, it's basically two sources. It's my primary mastering monitors and my secondary headphones, which were the Blues, and I'm probably now going to be the Audezes. In the past, when I was mixing, back in the day, it would have been my, main near field monitors, my little Oratones, and then I used like really inexpensive Sony headphones, like Walkman headphones and the MDR-7502s, really cheap like ones. And if it was today, I'd probably use earbuds instead of those. So that's what I used. And I had those two or three things I really heard everything through. And the Slate VCX, the only problem with it is that there's like 4 dozen choices in here, and you're never going to get to know all of them. So the choices are really there. I don't want to say as a gimmick, but you'd have to put the effort in to figure out which of the 2 or 3 or 4 listening environments within Slate VSX you're actually going to use. But that said, it could also be instructive and just fun to go to all of these different spaces virtually and listen to all of these different spaces virtually. But functionally, I really think to get the most out of them, you could absolutely learn to do great work on them, but you're going to want to limit your choices, and you're going to want to play around and experiment with a whole bunch of choices and then be like, here's the ones I'm limiting them to myself to. Here are the 2 or 3 different models that I'm actually going to use out of the VSX universe. And that's how I'd be inclined to approach it. So another great option here, really any of the headphones we've looked at so far, you could mix great sounding stuff on. I've given you my biases and my preferences, but let me go through a last couple more that people are going to want to know about. Let me get back over to this draft of this article that we're about to release. I need to finish writing up my section about the VSX headphones before I publish it. So some of the honorable mentions I gave in here were the Blue MixFis. These are the headphones I've been using forever. You can get the MixFis or the Lolas like discontinued on a serious discount. And I think some people have been finding them for like $150, $180 on blowout. Just be aware, some of this flaky stuff is going to come off, but I've done tremendous work on these for years, mastering records on these that have, been streamed millions of times on a pair of what was $300 headphones when I'm on the road, and then checking them against my main speakers. So those ones are great. Little cons about the Blue MixFis is that they are a little weird looking, a little big and clunky, and I kind of look like an air traffic controller. I don't love the aesthetic of them, but they are an interesting and unique design. All right, some of the other ones that I don't have with me, but I did put into my last roundup of headphones, last time I did my listening test in 2019, would be the Sennheiser HD650. We had them here. I talked about them. Great mid-range and high frequencies in both the 600s, which are a little bit less expensive, and the 650s. The 650s, I believe, have a little bit more low frequency than the 600s. I have to double check that. But I think the 600s are probably the more popular version of the two. Some of the other ones I had in here, actually the headphones that I ended up preferring that were really similar to the Sennheisers were the Shure SRH 1840s. Those were a similar concept to the Sennheisers, but I thought that they were just a little bit better sounding, a little bit more balanced, and a little bit more useful low frequency energy. I don't think that they're quite there in low frequency as some of the higher end models that we've looked at, like the Audeces and the Focals and the Blues, which have some of the best low end of any inexpensive headphones, but way better than the Sennheisers in that regard for my personal tastes. I just felt like, wow, these Shures, how come people don't talk about them? They're like the Sennheisers, only prettier sounding with more bottom. I like them better. The other headphones in that category were the Audio Technica R70Xs. These were only $350, so similar in price range to the Sennheisers. I felt like, didn't have as nice of a build quality as the Shures. These had really nice build quality, the SRH 840s, but of course they're around $500, at least the last time I wrote this article. I might have to update the prices. And then the R70X, $350 instead of around $500. Not quite as nice build quality, but on par with the Shures and the Sennheisers. You could really listen to the Shures, the Sennheiser HD600s, and these Audio Technica R70Xs and just be like, pick your favorite out of the bunch, because they're all good. They're all similar. But again, my hat tip goes to the Shures for being the best in that specific category. Another fun one in here are the Allos. They really look a lot like the Grado headphones, which are marketed more towards hi-fi, which are some headphones that even more people in pro audio should know about. But those guys refuse to market to pro audio, even though I think they should. The Allos are fun. They are about, I think the last I checked, these headphones were like $360. They might be a little bit more now. They weren't as flat and neutral as some of the other headphones, and they didn't have the same low frequency extension that we're finding out of things like the Audeces and the Focals. But they're unique and they're fun and they're good looking and they just have a great vibe about them. But there is a little bit of a smiley EQ curve that kind of scoops the mids a little bit and, boosts the upper mids and highs a little bit to make them sound more fun, which is not necessarily a problem, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for out of open back headphones for mixing, if that makes sense. And that's about it. I think that's like all the headphones that there are in this price range. If this was useful for you, please click some of the affiliate links down there, like and subscribe, share this video if it was useful for you. But the other thing you can do if you really want to sponsor this podcast, if you've listened to me talk for this long, then clearly you don't mind hearing me talk, which is weird, and I like you. But who better to learn more audio stuff from? So if you really want to support this podcast in the deepest way you can, check out one of our great full-length courses like Mixing Breakthroughs, Mastering Demystified, Compression Breakthroughs. They really will help improve the way that you work forever for the better, guaranteed, or your money back. They're the most useful things that I've ever done. And of course, there's even more preparation and even more editing that goes into those than some live stream. So the amount of value you get per minute in those courses is amazing. And it really does focus in on what are the big wins going to be for you in mixing, in learning to hear, use, and understand compression. How can you really get a sense for how to master at the highest level and conceptual level right out of the gate? And then how can we give you exercises that are going to help get you there more quickly? So check them out: Compression Breakthroughs, Mixing Breakthroughs, Mastering Demystified. All of them have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Also, big shout out and thanks to Sound Toys, making some of my favorite creative mixing effects in the known universe. Try out anything they make for free for 30 days over at soundtoys.com. And one more thing that I want to tell you about is you can become a member of this channel. If you like the live streams, if you like me going into all this detail, and you want answers to your questions in real time, we've got a membership here. There's a join button that you can hit on the bottom of any one of these videos. If you're on a desktop or an Android phone, you can just click the join button. It's $5 a month, and you get unrestricted access to live Q&As with me with guaranteed answers to your questions, as well as dedicated mix feedback sessions. If you're on an Apple iOS device, I think you've got to go over to, your desktop app or open it in your browser to be able to click that link. But $5 a month is a crazy value. And there's a whole bunch of additional bonus videos as well as personalized feedback and answers to your questions there. All right, let's see how we did today. Was I able to keep it under an hour? I have no idea. I just try to get out all of the stuff that I want to get out. We're at 49 minutes and 47 seconds. Should I cut it out now before we hit the 50-minute mark? Let's do it. This has been Justin Colletti of SonicScoop. Thanks for hanging out with me for this week's episode of the SonicScoop podcast. See you next time.